And welcome back to the table, everyone. I want to take a look at Brigade Fire and Fury. So I've been checking out several different Civil War rule sets. This one comes highly recommended. Just about every time I go to forums or just search in the internet for rule sets, this one comes up a lot. And I have no experience prior to this. Okay, so I ordered it and I've played a little bit with my son, just sample. We're just lining up a few brigades across from each other, kind of a thing, and then having them move forward and charge. And I mean, I like it. It's a good rule set, and I want to just kind of share the book with you. Now, that means if you're a Civil War player, you may already know this rule set really, really well. So this is actually brand new to me. So really, I'm not going to tell you how to play the game or anything like that, but I want to show you why I think this is a really good book and a really good rule system to get into. Now, when I ordered it, I did order it with the scenario book here. Great Western Battle scenario book. I did get that at the same time because it was a bundle, so you got a couple bucks off of it. And I did order an additional player aid chart, which if I had looked at the fine print, I might have seen that it comes with 2 already, but I thought there would just be 1, so I went ahead and ordered another one. And it comes inside the book. I think this one came separate. It was like between the 2 books, but then the 2 that come with the book itself, they were inside the book. So everything came out great, nothing damaged, so that was really good. So let's just kind of go through. I have read the rules, and like I said, did a little bit of a sample game. So if you're not familiar with Brigade Fire and Fury, this will be kind of my walkthrough for you. But again, not explaining the rules really in depth, just to show you the book. And I think this is a phenomenally written war game book. I only found maybe, like if you're nitpicking, that really stood out to me, like one misspelled word. So I'm not saying that this book is without mistakes. It's just I didn't really notice a lot. And I only mention that because I have picked up a few rule sets where, yeah, it was a mess to read. But this one, really good. So you got your forward. Oh, by the way, it is the 2nd edition of the rules that I picked up. I'm not sure if that matters to you or not, but just to let you know, I did pick up the 2nd edition. You got your table of contents. All right. The Preparing for War section explains how you set your stands up. This is a stand removal game. And then also what I really like is they encourage you to use markers that are on stands as well to represent different statuses, so your status markers. I think that's great. You could do that with any game, but I think I read somewhere where this game kind of innovated that. So just instead of having paper chits and dice and all kinds of stuff on your table cluttering up, your table is all miniaturized. And I think that's a cool concept. I just need to eventually collect enough to make that happen. Then it goes into kind of the scale of the game, your division, your corps, your combat experience. This is important. Real common that when I see a game where it has the 3 numbers like this, I usually think, okay, it must be Age of Eagles or some sort of Fire and Fury game. But based on the morale of the unit, excuse me, and the size of the unit, this little chart generates the numbers. I point this out because at the end of the book, there's a section on generating your own pickup armies. So you could just, you and your buddy get together and you both roll to generate the types of armies that you have. And then here's where you get your stands and their fresh, worn, spent levels. So I've used this chart quite a bit to generate some labels here, which I put on the back of my units. So, yep, I got familiar with that real quick. I also like here too that the rules seem like a lot of pages, but it's really, really good at explaining things to you. I have picked up some Civil War games where they say, like, rifle muskets out to this range, smoothbore out to this range, and then that's pretty much it. And then it tells you which levels, which units have smoothbore or rifle. But here it actually talks a little bit about what does that mean? What is smoothbore? What is rifle muskets? What does it mean to have mixed or repeaters? And even gives some weapon examples. So it's almost like a little history lesson too. It's very, very cool. I enjoyed reading it quite a bit. And it talks about making your labels, which I made my own, setting up your battlefield, talking about miniatures. And it's a miniatures game, and it looks great with miniatures. So they have some tips and advice to kind of help you set that up. Talks about labeling your ground on the board, not necessarily labeling it, but understanding the ground effect that it has on movement. Talks about line of sight a little bit. Setting up your game, how long is it, your twilight night turns, the dice, your quick reference sheets, how to win, measuring distance, templates. I'll show you some templates here maybe. I got them. Depends on how long this is. But anyway, there's your fluff. Intro to the game and getting yourself set up and prepared to play. And then the middle section here, the longest portion, is all about fighting the battle. And I like that the rules do a very good job, I think, in following the flow of the game. So this is a very structured game. There's not random moves or you and your opponent alternate turns. It's very traditional in the sense that this person executes all of their stuff, and then this person executes all of their stuff. You do have defensive fire and offensive fire. And when I played with my son, he was like, well, he's kind of tired of that. He gets that in like Warhammer and stuff. And we had another set of Civil War rules where there was like alternating activations, and he liked that a whole lot. But as we played this game, he saw that for this rule set, the benefit in having like your movement, charges, and then defensive fire, and then the offensive fire, he saw how it worked in this particular rule system, and he liked it, fortunately. But because it has a nice structured system to it, the rules really follow the order of stuff very nicely. And so it talks about your maneuver phase. And I like how it starts out at like a high level and then slowly drills in onto specific concepts. So maneuver phase sequence, like first here's the overall sequence of play, and it mentions maneuver. Then here it says maneuver, here's what you do, and then it goes right into how specifically do you do that. So like first is replace your fallen leaders. Here's a section on replacing your fallen leaders. Attach or detach, and then here's rules for attaching and detaching. It's really nice. There's no guesswork. It's just, oh, here's what I do. Here's a nice explanation. So I think the rules layout is really, really good. Also, the book itself is, I think, top-notch quality. Good quality paper. The hardbound itself is good. The binding has been great. I've been opening this and laying it out where I can, and it's holding up really nice. So overall, super, super quality book. And I really like and appreciate these huge, colorful examples that they have. And again, other rule sets include examples with little pictures, but I think these pictures are really good. I'm a visual person, and just having the color and everything just pops. I love it. The examples have been wonderful. And the rules, like here, not so much an example, but what I really liked is when they're talking about a chart, I think they did a really good job of putting like an A and then saying, hey, as you read this section of rules, there was one in here, where was it at? But it cross-references up with the chart really nicely. There it is down here. So your maneuver check procedure. So for example, the controlling player selects a brigade and determines which of the die roll modifiers listed adjacent to the table A apply. So right there, A. So it's talking about these modifiers. So again, there's some rules I've read in the past for various games that make some assumptions that, it's easy to figure out. Here's your die roll modifiers. And yeah, you could figure this out yourself, but I just thought it was really nice that they have a lot of nice touches for helping to call out specifically what they're talking about, what part of the table are they referring to. So again, just really for me shows how well written this is. You could tell that this has been around for a while. They've had plenty of time to really get the presentation down right. Then it, your maneuver check modifiers, good order effects. So yeah, I can maneuver, but what does that mean? Double quick, well handled, okay. That's how well I can do maneuvers. And then down here somewhere it talks about the specific maneuvers you can do as brigade or with your battery. So again, it's really, really nice. You have the high level concept, and then it breaks it down into the detailed, what does that mean? Your different types of formations and how to use them. Now, yeah, the problem is for me, as I was reading this, I don't play with stands. I play with like a singular stand, and I know it totally ruins the aesthetic appeal of the game having like 10 1-inch stands. So you have like 10 inches of guys. That's a rather lengthy brigade line that you can make, and also you do like your supported lines. Like, I get that. So converting this all to one of these stands as a brigade totally changes kind of the scale and how the game is played a bit, but it works for me. And that's another testament to the rules, is that it has enough, it's written well enough that as you replace things to like the types of stands you're using, the gameplay still holds up, I think. You do lose a couple things, like when you are denying the flanks is something that's explained in here, and I haven't quite figured out how I want to deny the flanks, because I can't break off a base, and then that would affect the firepower. So there's things I'm working on. It's just that I bought these the Warlord bases with when that came out. It was just I wasn't too happy with the black powder rule set. It just didn't speak to me, and so I've been looking for other rule sets. But I thoroughly enjoyed the look of the miniatures, kind of the smaller scale, and then when you put several of these bases together, I like the look of them. But using them as the individual brigades, when these are clearly 10 inches of brigade, this represents 10 inches, 12 inches worth of stands. It's kind of a pain. But the rules are forgiving enough that we've made it work. Most everything else is based pretty close to what you need anyway. Artillery, leaders. I just need a lot more leaders and artillery painted up. So really it's just the infantry that really, really needs some consideration when you play, if you're going to play with the Warlord miniatures. But again, all the callouts for the different tables, great colorful examples with explanations, template usage. Yeah, that's something else. Template usage with those smaller brigade stands I'm using. And then also you might, well, how do you do columns? Well, you're just going to have to you'll put them on the side, and then if you need to, you put your leader up front, and then you know which way the column's going. You do lose some of that tactical effect because they have different types of columns that you can march, and they all have a purpose. So you do lose some of that detail for this rule set, but all the other mechanics work great. And yeah, again, the game continues on. Here's refusing the flank and what that means. Talks about your charging, how you handle retreats, fallbacks, skedaddles, handling artillery, limbering, unlimbering. So everything you would expect from Civil War games is in here, and it's handled really well. It's not overly complicated, I don't think. Obviously, there's some details, like with any game, you might start out simple, and then as you get those mechanics down, then you might be worried about the different types of formations for marching and stuff. But for a new player, it hasn't been too bad. I know there's a lot of details I'm not putting in my game because I'm just trying to get the basics down, but what I like is the fact that that detail is there for when I'm ready for it. In gunnery, again, explained very simply, and everything you need. I'll talk about this quick reference sheet in a minute, but again, the game starts with kind of the high level concepts, and then each page breaks down into the detail. So far, every question that I've had about the game has been in the book. Like I can find it, so I have not had any lingering questions. If I had a question, I was able to find it. I had questions on charge, which comes later, right here. Here's the charge segment. For some reason, when I first got done reading, I didn't realize that charges were opposed. And when I was playing with my son, I was like, man, it just doesn't make sense that these are not opposed rolls. And I came back into the book and specifically found the charged combat procedure, and it is. They are opposed. Each side applies modifiers, and you roll the die, and then you take a look at the difference, and there you go. So everything has been in here that I have needed. And charges are not much more complicated. It is a little bit complicated, again, when you're trying to convert it over to these bases, because they have rules for overlapping, incidental, all kinds of stuff, and that may or may not apply if you're using these bases. It also affects the idea of gunnery. Like, well, is all of my base gonna fire? Or what I did here, just real quick, I made a template here. I got the template, printed it out. You know, if I'm looking at the 30-degree arc of fire, well, if I have a unit that's out here on the fringe far of this template and it's touching, because, you know, if I had made a 30-degree arc and just stuck it here in the middle, then, you know, I lose some of that flexibility of multiple stands from one. So if I'm on the outside edge to just clip a unit out here for the right-hand side, then I could say, okay, half of the gunnery can go here, right? Same if I'm on the left-hand side, or if something is right in the middle of that 60-degree arc, then the entire stand can fire. So taking some of these concepts for charging and whatnot, I'm making it work. And the game, like I said, it's forgiving enough to let me do that. And then breakthrough. This is like the last page of rules, and then you get into some scenarios. And I was really impressed with the amount of detail that went into the scenarios. So there's your story. Now again, this part, sure, most games, they have scenarios, they have a history of it. But what I like here is there's a huge amount of setup information. I mean, it just feels like almost like special scenario rules. So, you know, so F, activate on turn 4, detachment Coax Brigade. Excuse me, and that's somewhere here in the F area, F. So they're very detailed scenarios. I like that. I could see where some people might not like that, but again, these are based on historical battles, so it's not too bad. And with that detail, I like here it also tells you like how many stands you would need, but again, for me, because I'm using the not multi-base stands, it hasn't been a problem figuring out how many stands I do need based on my warlords. So here's your division. So I could take, you know, there's a division leader. That's easy enough. And then if I've got, I don't have a core leader stand yet, but, you know, here I could have that covered. And then if I've got this brigade, let's see, like that brigade, I think that's like a detachment, but here's a brigade. And I would label them 15, 13, 10. So that's the part where I know some people who are, you know, in a position to have all the stands and miniature for this game. 15 stands at 1 inch apiece. I mean, that's like over a foot on the table. That's a rather wide deployment, and I'm shoehorning it into this one. So I get it. It's just I'm committed now. If somebody wants to donate their Civil War miniatures to me, then I'd be more than happy to play it with, you know, this is 15 stands, that's 10 stands. But as it stands, but as it is, one stand. What that's done, though, is it's allowed me to start prepping for a scenario without having to invest a lot of time painting and prepping and setting up miniatures, because these brigades, it still takes me a few hours to paint up a brigade, but like I have enough to do this battle. I am missing any of the cavalry. Have to get cavalry, but I've got enough for infantry, I have enough for artillery, so I can do some of the scenarios here without needing to have, you know, both Union and Confederate, because I have to do both sides. So anyway, I think the scenarios are really well put together, lots of great information, historical stuff, and then lots of great setup information. But If you're looking for something more free form than a structured scenario, then that's where the last part we'll talk about, the fictional army generator. Just use the die 10 to roll to determine what you get. First, you choose on the side size of the game, so how much the Union brings, how much the Confederate player will bring, and then some dice rolls will decide the time, theater, and then you start deciding how many brigades per division, all based on dice rolls. And it does make lopsided battles. All right, so don't come into the generator thinking, oh, this is going to make some evenly balanced scenarios. Nope. First rolls that I did, I ended up, the Confederate player had like 48 stands, and then the Union player had like 28 or something like that. I mean, it was a huge discrepancy between the two. And then, you know, it randomly determines their experience levels, if you have exceptional commanders, so it's all random. So if you want something more balanced, then you'll have to intervene, which is what I did. So my first set of little divisions that I made, I did cheat a little bit. It's not cheating, but I did tweak the Union a little bit to give them a few more stands to have a bit of a fighting chance. And it ended up working pretty good. I think probably the battle would have been probably better if I hadn't interfered. And because what I did was originally the Confederates had 5 brigades total in one division, and then the Union player had, I think, it had 5 brigades as well, split across. It was just that their stands, the numbers here were just overall a lot lower. So I added one more brigade, and I think that brigade kind of overbalanced the game in favor of the Union. So it's possible. With that one experience, I guess I can't say how unbalanced it is. It's just that if you roll really low for one player, which is what was happening, I was rolling like 1s and 2s and 3s, which kind of gave poorer results. And then felt like I was rolling 8s, 9s, and 10s for the Confederate. So it just felt like it was making, based on poor dice rolls for the Union and good dice rolls for the Confederate. But maybe if I had more experience playing with this, it might be very well balanced. It just feels like if you go purely random, you could get some lopsided battles, which is not an unrealistic thing that could happen. But if you're looking for something a little more balanced, you may have to intervene a little bit. And then the very end, here's some templates. So again, overall, this is a phenomenally well written set of rules, and I'm happy to play. I can't wait to play some more. I just need time, like everything. Alright, but yeah, if you have some experience with Brigade Fire Fury, please share in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think of it. And again, before I forget, I was going to mention the QRS. This quick reference sheet is amazing. I'm surprised. The amount of detail and complexity that is within the pages of the book here play out onto this. It's a longer sheet, but it does play out onto one double-sided quick reference sheet. You could almost argue 2.5 pages or something, but it works out great. Maneuver table. This I think is good. I didn't know if I would like this at first. It is kind of a hassle to have to check modifiers and roll for every single brigade, but it works. It just can be time consuming if you have a lot of brigades, if you're playing a large battle, I would think. But it works out pretty good. It's amazing how everything is so self-contained, because I would mark someone disordered, and I was like, oh man, how do I get rid of that? Oh, that's right, I can roll and see if they lose that. And everything fell into place as we started to play. Talks about your player turn sequence, your move rates, fallen leader table, maneuvers you can do. So when it says you can successfully do a maneuver, here's a reminder of some of your maneuvers. And of course, the rule book fills in the details you might have forgotten. That's me. And then gunnery. This worked out surprisingly simple as well when we played. I think this was the one thing we forgot to do, was apply the disordered penalty. You get half of your fire point modifier, but I think overall, though, the game worked out pretty good. And I think by not having, it just made combat that much more deadly when we played. But again, there's only a few modifiers you need to apply. Roll your die 10. Look at the target experience level. I thought that was pretty cool. You're looking at the target experience level because the more experienced the target is, the better they are at finding cover and hugging ground or taking advantage of not being shot, I guess. And then applying Withering Fire. It was kind of fun. You know, like, oh, I applied Withering Fire to you, and you read the results. And then this is the only part I had to explain to my son just a little bit was specific dice rolls. In this block, it's telling fire, but then a 9 and 10, like if it's a green target, or 8 or 7, it just tells you in more detail how it affects being charged. You know, so I was being charged by that group. I rolled a 10. The charge was checked. You know, so you still apply all the telling fire, but then it just tells you what the charge. Because he was like, well, what's the difference between galling fire and telling fire? Well, the difference is how does it affect being charged, kind of a thing. So a couple things to explain, but we got it. And then once we realized that charge is definitely, you know, a differential die roll with modifiers applied to each person's die roll, I think that'll make charge much better. When we first played, it was like, well, I'm not outnumbered. The other guy was outnumbered, so that would affect him. So we just had to apply one person, and the charges always ended up on the positive side. There wasn't much in the way of differential. So yeah, we definitely could have done charge better. But like I said, I can't wait to play again and then apply these things correctly. So overall, amazing quick reference sheet. Everything you need is right there. And it's all backed up by plenty of detail in a super well-written rule book. So thank you, Brigade Fire Fury. This was a great purchase, worth every penny. And if you all have experience, please don't hesitate to share your feelings on this. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.